have you ever stopped to think about why the long-dreamed-of freedom only arrives when we no longer have time to enjoy it? The system sells retirement as the ultimate prize, but for most, it comes too late. Decades of work, discipline, and hope, all to, in the end, discover that the promised freedom was nothing more than a distant mirage. The uncomfortable truth is that your entire life is designed to postpone your dreams. First you study, then you work, then you wait. Always putting off the present in the name of a future that, for many, never arrives. Make no mistake. The trap is in making you believe that the reward is certain, when, in reality, it's just another promise that keeps you in line. If you have the courage to go on, get ready to confront the question almost no one asks. What if the freedom we seek was never part of the plan? There is an old promise, a silent echo that crosses generations and settles, almost as law, in the collective unconscious of every worker. A whispered voice in homes, companies, hallway conversations, Sunday lunches, and motivational speeches. Work hard now. Wait your turn. One day, you will retire, and then, finally, you'll be free. This phrase has become a mantra. Sometimes, it even feels like a religious dogma. It offers a sort of consolation, as if all the effort, all the sacrifices, every sleepless night or weekend given up had a greater purpose. Future freedom, a prize at the end of the race. But, upon closer inspection, it's possible to see a subtle cruelty within this hope. Because that promised freedom rarely arrives as imagined. Often, it simply never arrives. And when it finally does, it comes too late, dressed in exhaustion, loneliness, or even regret. Have you noticed how society builds the value of sacrifice? Since childhood, we hear about the value of hard work, the importance of dedication, saving money, giving up pleasures, to guarantee a secure future. But the future is always a horizon. No matter how much you walk towards it, it never really gets any closer. Decades go by. You work, follow schedules, obey rules, postpone dreams and pleasures in the name of that tomorrow that always seems promising, but never tangible. You plan, invest, save, calculate, project, all with the promise that one day you'll be rewarded. But no one talks about the price of this postponement. Time doesn't stop. It doesn't wait. And at every stage of life, something is left behind. A relationship, an experience, a possibility. The cost of the future is the present that slips away. The invisible price of deferred freedom. Few dare to admit it, but honesty is needed. Most people die before ever being free. And most don't even realize they lived in a prison. Not of bars, but of ideas, routines, obligations. They devote decades to the same company, to someone else's projects, to goals that say little about their true desires. In the end, retirement brings fatigue, loneliness, nostalgia for what was never lived. The body is worn out, the mind no longer sparks, and the soul, sometimes, falls asleep. Think of the parents who spent their whole lives sacrificing to give their children a better life, but never saw them grow up, never took part in decisive moments, never built shared memories. How many men and women gave up passions, postponed trips, ignored invitations, stopped learning something new because they believed, first I need to be stable. How many sacrificed health, relationships, even the meaning of life itself, in exchange for a future promise of rest. And in the end, the finish line brings no celebration. Often, there isn't even the energy left to enjoy it. The body aches. The head feels heavy. The freedom, finally conquered, seems small in the face of all the exhaustion and lost opportunities. The system doesn't need you to live, only to produce. The system, in truth, doesn't need you to live fully. It just needs you to keep producing, fulfilling functions, keeping the wheels turning. There's no need to kill you, just to keep you busy until there's no energy or time left. The most efficient tool in this machinery is the promise of future, freedom. It's no wonder that from early on, we hear phrases like, save your money. Your old age depends on it. Don't spend now. Think of the future. You can only relax after you retire. Work hard today. Reap the rewards tomorrow. These ideas sound rational, almost wise, but they hide a perverse logic. You spend your life training for a game that will never happen. You run every day, but never really know where your boat's going. And in this constant motion, opportunities are lost, relationships neglected, passions and dreams postponed, almost always for a future that never materializes. And who benefits from this? The system, of course, which feeds off your constant productivity, off your energy renewed by the fear of not having security, by the anxiety of not being enough. The illusion of financial security. Perhaps the greatest lie of our time is this: if you save enough, you'll have security in the future. But what is enough? Who decides that? How many examples do you know of people who saved every penny, gave up everything, and when they finally reached the long-awaited retirement, found themselves lonely, exhausted, with a pile of idle time, but no will, energy, or health to live all that had been postponed, because life was not lived. It was only planned. While you save, calculate, postpone, you see friends fall ill, colleagues drift away, relationships fade with time, talents die out before ever blooming. And all this happens on the altar of future security, as if that were the only valid currency of existence. The cruel irony is that many work their whole lives to have free time, but when they finally get it, they no longer have the energy, enthusiasm, or vitality to enjoy it. Free time often becomes a void to be filled, not a celebration of freedom. Social death. Before physical death, there is a death even more painful than the physical: the death of enthusiasm, curiosity, the ability to be surprised by life. It's a social, emotional, existential death, the kind that happens while still alive, in eyes that have lost their sparkle, in a heart that beats only out of obligation, in a mind that no longer allows itself to dream. Do you see this death in yourself, or in those around you? In that colleague who no longer wants to learn anything new? In that family member who lives only for others? In that friend who gave up their own dreams to survive in a system that does not recognize their value? And yet, most keep going. Because the script is written. The path seems safe. Doubts are silenced by fear. It's easier to keep producing, filling roles, keeping busy, than to stop and question whether it all makes sense. No one questions it. The system doesn't want you to stop. Think. Reflect. It wants movement, production, occupation. It wants you to keep running, even if your feet bleed, even if your heart slows down, even if your soul screams for meaning. In the end, when you cross the finish line, retired, free from the clock, free from demands, you realize that freedom was found along the way, not at the destination. It was in the moments you let pass by, the experiences you postponed, the people you didn't prioritize, the small joys you ignored. Micro Stories from Real Life. Anna was always the exemplary employee. For 30 years, she turned down her children's invitations for outings, postponed art classes, saved money for a trip she would take as soon as she retired. When she finally had the time, her children had already moved on. Her health wasn't the same, and her desire to paint was just a memory. Zhuang was the portrait of prudence. Every cent saved, every expense avoided. The dream: to buy a house on the beach and finally rest. When the day arrived, he realized his friends were no longer around. The waves broke on the sand, but there was no one to share the sunset with. Clara went further. She decided to change the script. At 45, Tired of the endless cycle of work and promises, she decided to pursue an old dream: to open a small cafe, decorate the space, chat with customers. She left behind the security of decades and, in the process, rediscovered the joy of living. The future stopped being a promise. It became presence. Generational differences. New views on time. The concept of retirement was born in an era when work was exhausting, repetitive, often unhealthy. The promise of rest at the end of life made sense. It was redemption. Today, new generations are starting to question this script. They want meaning now. They want experiences, connections. They want time for themselves. The older generation looks at this with bewilderment. They say, "This youth has no patience," or "They don't know the value of sacrifice." But maybe, just maybe, they do know the value of a life truly lived, not just survived. The cycle of working hard, sacrificing, postponing, and waiting for the final reward is being questioned. And perhaps it's time for each of us, regardless of age, to reflect. Who am I living for? What am I putting off for later? How much of my essence am I trading for future promises? Time is an investment with no return. Time is a non-renewable resource. Every day lived is an investment that never comes back. Money can be recovered. Time cannot. Are you investing your days in other people's projects, jobs, and dreams? Or are you truly building your own story? The danger of living in waiting mode is that it numbs you. It gradually takes away the taste of small achievements, surprises, unexpected experiences. It turns life into a long-term project, forgetting that it is made up of daily gifts, encounters, laughter, tears, and lessons. Call to reflection. What story do you want to tell? Perhaps true success is not about accumulating, saving, guaranteeing, or planning every inch of the future. Maybe success is about finding meaning now, building relationships that matter, living unforgettable experiences, allowing yourself to make mistakes, start over, and celebrate. The central question is not how much you will have in the future, but how much you are living in the present. Freedom is not a finish line. It is the sum of steps taken with purpose, every single day. Maybe the answer is to exchange fear for movement, postponement for action, promise for presence. Maybe it's time to ask yourself, what is my true value? What do I really want to build? What do I want to feel, experience, and learn while time is my ally and not my enemy? The only valid answer is the one you find by looking within, with courage. Because only you can break the cycle of waiting and choose to truly live here and now.